The way we lead impacts the way people live. This world needs truly human leadership. I'm Brent Stewart, your host. Thanks for listening. This podcast is an outreach of Barry-Wehmiller. You can connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller, and find our podcast articles and videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. You're listening to a Truly Human Leadership podcast refresher, where we reshare insight from podcast episodes from the past. Dr. Ken Druck is a best-selling author, a coach, and a speaker. But most importantly, though, he's an expert on resiliency, born out of the tragedies in his own life. Through his writings and speeches, he has become a lifeline of hope and inspiration to countless individuals, families, organizations, and communities in their darkest hour. His life-changing programs, social media articles, and books, including the Real Rules of Life, the Self-Care Handbook, and Courageous Aging, give readers, audiences, and clients a clear, practical, and inspired path for healing, growth, and positive change. One of the strongest messages Ken brings to others is one of compassion and empathy. Ken is a longtime friend and advisor of Barry-Wehmiller CEO Bob Chapman, and he recently spoke at Barry-Wehmiller's corporate offices as part of our Leadership Speaker Series. Ken spoke about creating a compassionate workplace, and on today's podcast, we want to share that message with you. So here's Dr. Ken Druck.
Some people call compassion, we had a slogan when I started the Jenna Druck Center, we had a slogan, compassion is your pain in my heart. Compassion is also your joy in my heart. But it's a willingness on all of our parts to stand in a moment of what the other person might be feeling, what they might be experiencing, what they might be going through. So here we are to talk about what does it mean to be a compassionate workplace. I'm a teacher of grief literacy. I've taught it at the Harvard School of Public Health, and I've taught it all over the world and developed protocols. Now, grief was not my choice. I didn't go to graduate school and say, gee, what's the most exciting thing I can do? Let me go into loss, No. As Bob shared, it was 22 years ago. My oldest daughter, Jenna, who was a superstar, a rising star in the world, voted one of America's future leaders, said, Dad, there's this amazing program. It's called Semester at Sea. You've heard of it. I'm going to go on this program. We're going to visit all these amazing places around the world. And I dropped her off at the airport and I said, this is going to be a launching pad for the rest of your life. I know you know the world is bigger than California or Colorado, where she was going to school. She was a President's Leadership Institute scholar. And I said, this is going to be a launching pad. And little did I know that I'd be saying goodbye to my daughter for the last time. I'd be saying I love you in person for the last time. So for me, I'm the kind of person who survives by immersing myself in whatever it is, in whatever chapter of life I'm in whatever life has handed me to deal with. And so transforming adversity into the opportunity to become the better version of myself has been what my life has been about. Life's saddest moments come, and some of you in the room understand exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's us in the headline. Sometimes it's our loss in the headline. And this was my worst nightmare come true. The past 22 years, the traumatic loss of my daughter, founding and running the Jenna Druck Center, being on the front lines and in the trenches, being the go-to guy after 9/11, Katrina, Boston, Sandy Hook. I was just with the Sandy Hook families last month again, and working with organizations after life and living losses and teaching resilience. What we do after a loss, I call it the code of honoring. And we were actually talking, a group of us were talking about it last night. Because when we suffer a loss, and it could be the loss of a business, it could be a horrible year we're having, it could be the loss of a coworker, a founder. I know this organization has experienced some pretty significant and profound losses of people that are precious, that have been part of your history, that have helped build and grow this organization. Well, we get the choice. We wake up and it's Groundhog Day every morning, and we look down and there's the path of despair, and there's the path of honor and hope. And the path of honor and hope is distinguished by 5 things. There are 5 honorings that I consider. And this is something I've taught to the Navy SEALs families, to the military, to bereaved parent organizations, to 9/11 families after that situation, and so on. The first thing is that we survive. The first honoring is our own survival. When we go through horrible traumatic losses, it's the ancients used to call the dark night of the soul. And when we go through these things, the first thing we can do to honor the person we've loved, that we've lost, is to survive, is to practice self-care. One of the other programs I give, and maybe we'll come back and do an exercise, I wrote a book called The Handbook of Self-Care. And I teach professional grade self-care to oncologists, to people who work in domestic violence, to the police department, to the fire department, and so on. Because what do we need to do? We need to upgrade our self-care. This is not about getting a mani and a pedi. This is about really learning how to take care of ourselves. And we have all these self-care saboteurs, all these reasons and excuses for not taking care of ourselves. And yet, if we're going to be in game shape and play at the level that we want to play at and have that championship season, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to find that balance. The second honoring is to do something good in their name. I started a nonprofit foundation. You started a foundation. But it could be as simple as lighting a candle. It could be something very, very simple. But doing something good in the name of the person you lost is part of an honoring. The third is to embody some aspect of their spirit. For me, it was my daughter's unending enthusiasm, her reverence for living, her enthusiasm about life. I don't know when she slept. And for me to embody that, to have that as part of my own spirit, for me to have that as something I wanted to be more of when I grew up, was very important. The fourth honoring is to cultivate a spiritual relationship with the person we've lost. We didn't sign up for that. I signed up for a daughter graduating college, at least one loser boyfriend, struggling, finding her career, but eventually engaging and watching this beautiful young woman blossom. That's what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for a spiritual relationship, but that's what we get. Sometimes it's what we get. And what do we do with it? The spiritual relationship, and I'm not talking about a religious relationship, is one in which we don't stop saying, I love you. We don't know what the true nature of life and death is, but we don't stop saying, I love you. We bet our faith. And we also listen for the I love yous. We somehow allow ourselves to continue the love that never dies. That's what a spiritual relationship is. And, I was with a family last week, and a man who had lost his wife. And his wife had really regulated his whole life. So, it's like, all right, you're not going to wear that today, Or wouldn't it be a good idea to do this tomorrow, And his wife's voice is with him. She's gone, and she's right here. Paradox is the highest form of understanding loss. My daughter's gone, and she's right here, always with me, has never left my side. The fifth honoring is the most difficult, involves the greatest amount of courage, because it means writing new chapters of life, living forward, even though we have a hole in our hearts. Sometimes when I work with groups of bereaved families, I tell them, you know what? I walk with a limp in my heart, but I've stopped being ashamed of it. I've stopped defending it or making excuses. yes, there's a brokenness in me and a hole in my heart forever. I'm both broken and whole. I'm one of the most whole people you'll ever meet. But I also have a brokenness. I'm broken and whole. Paradox. The more we live in a both-and world, the less we make it either-or, the more we understand, I think, the true nature of reality. Transforming adversity into opportunity is what we all get to do. Summoning the courage to process our losses, reimagine our future, and forming a plan. One of the last compassionate workplace programs I did, where one of the employees was very ill, and we had a program. This was actually in San Diego in the DA's office, and every single one of them had donated a day, and every year I give a Compassionate Workplace Award away to an organization. They won it this year. Every one of them gave a vacation day to this woman so that she could get paid. And they won this year's Compassionate Workplace Award. Grief literacy, that's what we're here for. And if you think this only applies to being here today in this company, this applies to everything. It means the life losses, we talked about that. We talked about living losses. Standing in the ashes of Plan A and stepping into a new normal. You know I've been there. The benefits of processing grief, because we have a choice. All of us have these amazing emotional systems that are as amazing as our brains, as amazing as our respiratory and digestive systems. We have these emotional systems. Guess what we get to do? We have internal radar. We can pick up how we're feeling about something. It's like, oh, you're angry, or you're sad, or you're happy, or you're surprised, or whatever emotions, there's a part of us that tells us how we're feeling. It reports back to us. We get to be conscious and awake and aware. So we either process those losses in a society where there's a pill for every pain, a fix for every problem, a diversion for every moment of emptiness. Of course, feelings are the enemy. We've got to shoot them unless they're positive feelings, right? You shoot the messenger. It's like, I'm feeling sad. Let's kill that. I might get demoted if people see me sad. I might get demoted if people see me confounded or confused in a moment of confusion, even if it's fertile confusion or in a moment of doubt. So we look for only positive. We become positive thinkers, right? As though that's the solution. So processing our losses and our emotions, we get to use our processor. What happens when we don't process emotions? We become the dumbed down version of ourselves. We don't use our process. What becomes, if we don't process sorrow, what happens? We become indifferent. We lose our sense of empathy and compassion because we're unwilling to allow ourselves to feel. We think to feel is to fail. I'm feeling something, right? So using those processors, especially when it turns to grief and loss. The dangers of unprocessed grief I started talking about. Indifference, dumbed down version, numbed up, physical and psychosomatic illnesses. Trying to hide, deny, repress, outsmart, outrun, outnumb our feelings. Some of us are still doing that. And healing organically, not with a spin, summoning newfound courage and strength, allowing our sorrow, allowing constructive outlets for our anger. These are all important things. The path of honor we talked about, and living forward, saying, you know what, I'm a work in progress, but I am determined. Out of the ashes of this loss, I'm standing in the ashes of what I thought, of what I had hoped, what I had dreamt, of the blueprint of what I thought life would be. But this is a moment for me. This is a moment I need to summon the strength and the courage and the faith, the understanding to move forward. And to do it with the support of my tribe. You are each other's work family. How do you show up for each other in those moments? It's critically important. So, how do we support each other? Because each one of us is going to get what? We're going to get a turn in the soup. We all get to go through losses, changes, and transitions. There's not a person in this room who hasn't gone through them or who will not be going through them in the future. So, the first thing after 9/11, I would ask all the families, what's the most significant, important thing that somebody said to you? And they said, when somebody looked me in the eyes and sincerely said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Not when somebody tried to put a spin. I had a woman come up to me the week after my daughter died and tell me, everything works out for the best. So after I choked her and threw her to the ground, No, I didn't. But some of us in our moment of helplessness, what's the enemy of grief support? It's our own feeling of powerlessness, helplessness. We don't know what to say. So we make something up, or we say something with a psychological or religious spin. We put something on it, and it's not the right thing to say. Simple, I'm sorry. So, express your condolences. Simple, sincere, I'm so sorry. A soft hand on a shoulder and a caring hug are usually perfect. Seconds, be present, stay in touch, even when others begin to disappear. When we go through grief and loss, some people, it's so overwhelming for them, bless their hearts, that they disappear, they go missing. But guess what? For every person that goes missing, there's an angel that appears. There are people who show up and it's like, wow, you're really here for me. So, showing we genuinely care through kind words and actions. It's okay to show them that you care with your own tears of sorrow. Be a safe harbor for them to express feelings. Allow them to grieve without fear of being judged, analyzed, fixed, cured, saved, or healed. Okay? Critical that we calm down our own feeling of helplessness, our own feelings of unknowingness in that moment of support. The second most important thing anybody ever said to me was, I can't possibly understand what you might be going through. It's like, thank you. Thank you. Instead of, my cat died last year, I understand exactly what you're going through, which is, we used to have, the Jenna Druck Center, we used to have the 10 stupidest things people said. We would record them on the wall, and there was always a new one that came in. Listen patiently, ask them to open-ended questions, see how they're doing, what they need, and how you can be helpful. The art of asking an open-ended question, it's the key to good parenting, yes? I can always tell good parents, I give the tongue test. I ask people to stick out their tongue. How many people are parents in here? Yeah, okay. So I ask parents to stick out their tongues to see if there's scar tissue on their tongues. If you have a lot of scar tissue, you're a good listener and you're a good parent. I'm kidding. We're all good parents. But it's all those times we bite down and be quiet and we listen and we ask open-ended questions. Open-ended questions is not, are you going to wear that shirt again? Or, why did you change your hair? And, it's not a question that's laced with judgment. It's truly an open-ended inquiry. You really want to find the answer out. And so asking somebody who's grieving, an open-ended question. And don't let that question be, how are you doing? The last question after 9/11 and after these tragedies people want to be asked is, how are you doing? Because you don't want to know how I'm doing. It's a social nicety to say, how are you doing? It's better to say, just know that you're in our thoughts or our prayers. Even though that's gotten a bad rap lately, that's not enough to just say you're in our thoughts and our prayers. And in some cases that's true. But also asking people, how can I be helpful? The last thing you want to ask somebody is, listen, give me a call. I know you're going through, like, give me a call. Let me know if you need anything. Nobody's going to call you. If you say, here are 3 things I was thinking about. I'd like to bring dinner over to the house for the next couple of nights. Would that be okay? We have a great landscaper gardener, and we'd love to just clean up. If it would be helpful, we'd love to just go over. We can handle that this month. Or we'd like to give you our vacation days for the next month. Those are concrete offerings that let people know you're serious and you're available to help out, rather than, give me a call, let me know if there's anything I can do, okay? Okay, give them multiple choices, that's what I just said, and giving the grieving person every opportunity to talk about the person who died. Let's keep going. Ask them how they would like your support. Let them be the authority. Especially on difficult days, anniversaries, holidays, and I call them angelversaries. That's the death date. Show genuine concern, kindness, understanding, patience, empathy, compassion. Put your ego on the shelf and be of service to them. Stay humble, flexible, relaxed, and ease the pain when you're with them and at ease when you're with them. Sometimes we're so frenetic and we're so, what can I do? It's like, you can stop asking me, what can I do? Just be with me. And when you're trying to help somebody ease their way back to work, don't let them feel like they're walking around on eggshells. Okay? It's like you're so fragile, or, communicate, connect. Ask them, let them be the authority, let them be in control. Their world may have been obliterated as they knew it. Their lives as they knew them might have ended. So let them have some sense of control by asking them what they need. Okay? Let them ease their way back to work. Allow them in getting the grief support they need, including professional help. Let them ease their way back to work a few hours at a time. There's a protocol, which I'll share with you guys if you like, for what it means to ease your way back to work. So that's a couple of hours at a time. Sometimes we have meltdowns when we come back to work and we try to function again. So there should always be a person in the B position who's ready to jump in and take over if you need to step away for a while. There's a whole protocol we can share. Set up the backup and buddy system and invite them without the least bit of pressure to join you for lunch, coffee, and so on. Let's go through some don'ts. Don't assume you know how they feel. Don't put a psychological, religious, we've already said that, spin on their loss. Don't use cliches like the glass is half full or just be positive. Refrain from anything that might be interpreted as hurry up and you'll get over it. I had a woman come over to me after about a year after losing Jenna, and it was one of the first times I went out to the mall. It's like my big step. It's like, all right, I'm going to rejoin, because when you lose a child, you feel like, not only have I lost a child, I've lost the world. The rest of the world's just going on. I'm yesterday's news, My world, as I knew it, is over. And so for me, it was a big step, and I went out to the mall, and sure enough, I ran into somebody who came over to me and said, Ken, how you doing? How's it going? And it's like, and I looked at her and I said, you may not be aware, but my daughter Jenna died. And she said, yeah, but wasn't that last year? It's like, oh, I forgot to tell my heart that was last year. Some parts of grief occur outside of and beyond time. You can't tell the heart, oh, your time's up. Grief has a life and a timetable all its own. And we have to be respectful and sensitive to that. All right? Some of us, in this room, if I said, raise your hand if you've had a significant loss, it would be everybody in here. You still think about and you still process that loss. Why? Because you've kept love alive. You miss them. You've kept your love alive. If I said, all right, you don't like these feelings, you don't like this occasional tsunami that comes through or tidal wave of sorrow and missing somebody, all right, just sign here. And it says, I will stop loving that person. Because if you stop loving them, you'll probably forget them. Or a sign here, and it says, occasionally, I will have a huge moment, a wave of sorrow come over me, and I'll miss them, and I'll think about how much I love them and how much I had wished that history had written it differently, that they could be a part of my life right now and I could be sharing this part of my life with them. That's natural, that's normal, that's beautiful, that's you keeping your love alive. And there's a cost to it, sure. You're going to be sad once in a while. You want to sign? Which one are you going to sign? The one that says I'm going to stop loving, or I'm going to love them for the rest of my life, even if that means an occasional tidal wave rolls through of sorrow and yearning to be with them. Okay? So, refrain from anything that might be interpreted as hurry up. Don't give unsolicited advice. That's good advice in everything. Do not suggest a quick fix to take away the pain. Hey, I know somebody who lost a kid, and you know what they did? It's like, no, I don't want to hear what they did. Ask me what I'm doing that's helping me. And help me be aware of things that are making it even harder, that I do that are making it even harder. Like I'm isolating. I'm withdrawing. Because we have a choice. We don't get to play God. We don't get to decide how long those people we love live. In some cases, how long we live. But a heart either breaks open and we become the bigger version of us. We become the more loving person who knows what's truly a priority and what's precious and what's important. Or our heart breaks closed and we become the smaller version of us, contracted around our pain, trying to protect ourselves. And that we get to choose. My heart going to break open? Am I going to become the more loving version? I know what's at risk. I know life sometimes turns on a dime. Or am I going to become this? And we get to choose that every day, don't we? Don't take it personally if they're not responding to you. How many of us have, it's like, my God, I wrote them a card. We were at the memorial service. And I never heard anything back. They haven't contacted us, you know. They're not even coming to the Christmas party. It's like, please, please. Sometimes we need to give people a hall pass. They're in terrible pain. They're struggling to put their life back together to mean something important to them. Their hearts are hurting so badly. They need our support, not our judgment, our compassion, our understanding, our forgiveness. Okay? Don't allow your feelings of helplessness, impatience, and we talked about that, and intolerance of their persisting sorrow to cause you to say something insensitive. And finally, don't ask how they're doing or any other casual question. Tell them and their family, tell them they and their family continue to be in your good thoughts and prayers. Don't control the conversation. Don't avoid, gloss over, act cute, change the subject like nothing's happened. When they bring up the loss, respond in a way that shows them you are listening and that you genuinely care. Don't smother them with caregiving attention. Don't hide, deny, repress, displace, or self-medicate feelings of sorrow that may have been triggered by their loss. Because what happens when I started talking about my loss, I saw several of you, your heart just dropped into your stomach, right? Because you understand. You have a deep sense of empathy, or you know somebody, or you yourself have gone through that, okay? So it's okay it's okay to be who we are. It's okay to be alive and awake emotionally and feeling people. And don't make executive decisions about what they need without consulting them. Ask them what they'd like to have happen, okay? So, we know that there's, what's the enemy when we try to pathologize grief? Sorrow is not depression, and these are all elements. We talked about paradox and languaging and a safe place for processing grief, being with grief, deep listening, quieting down our own internal noise, and giving people, voicing the objection and allowing sorrow and the expression of that. There's also these issues, which I'm not going to get into a lot now, the neuropsychology of resilience, and tools, and the grief journey. And we can talk about these things, and you might have questions about them. And of course, we talked about the undying love. The love that seeks to become love again, the sorrow that seeks. Okay? And what choices we do get, how we process our losses. This is just how to get a hold of me if you need it. That is the general outline of what it means to be a compassionate person, to really become a compassionate workplace, and the choices that we make. The greatest work of art is our life. It's how we're ripening as people. Our ability to be attuned to each other, even in the rawness of grief, of losses, of challenging times in all of our lives, how we show up. And it's so easy in our work families for us to be raw. You know, the stress that sometimes we're under is unspeakable. You know, I was just with a client last week who the tariffs have just turned his world inside out. Most of his business is with China. And his company, he's in a family business, so he has, you know, his whole family, they're all running around with their hair on fire. All the employees are in that rawness. And we all got together like this and we said, we're all under pressure. We're under horrific pressure. How are we going to treat each other? Are we going to be biting each other's noses off in the rawness of this moment, in the unknowingness and the uncertainties of this moment, as we try to reconfigure the way we're going to go about doing business, as we try to reconfigure how we're talking to our clients, as price points change? We've destabilized our entire operation. But how are we going to show up in this moment? Well, the compassionate workplace, we show up with patience. We show up with respect always, with kindness, with forgiveness, and with exceptional communication. We preface the things we say to each other respectfully. You know, hey, I've got a situation, and I'm telling myself things are falling apart or unraveling, and it's something that involves you. Would this be a good time for us to talk? It's an invitation to good communication. It's expressing good faith. And putting these things into practice, these are the best practices of a compassionate workplace. Translate into teams, into taking the adversity that we're all going through, the challenges that we're all having to face, and transforming them into the better, stronger version of the Barry-Wehmiller companies. That's what we're doing. We're defining this culture in the simple ways we treat one another at these times of adversity.
Don't forget to find us and connect on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller. And you can find more podcasts, articles, and videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. I'm Brent Stewart. Thanks for listening.